conference about belonging and about inclusion and about relationships and all the good things that all of us want in life. And it reminds me of a quote I heard, and I guess it's true. I don't know. An infamous, maybe famous American bank robber named Willie Sutton was asked, "Why do you rob banks?" And he said, "Well, that's where the money is." Little glib, right? Well, why would you go to work? Well, that's where the people are, you know. And if we're about inclusion, if we're about really making sure that that we're facilitating lives for people that have similarity with all others in our society, it's pretty hard to really have an inclusive life if you're not where the people are. And so many of the people of the age of the folks that either you are, if you happen to experience disability, or the people that you care about and serve are, they're at work during the day. I mean, at most, not all. I realize that in your country and mine, there are people that manage lives without work. I'm kind of aspiring to that right now, but at my age, it's called retirement. I don't know if that was I guess theoretically, I had the idea that it'd be nice to lay on a beach in Australia, day after day, week after week, month after month. I don't know who was ever going to pay for that, but again, employment is one of those great routines of life that I think we all ought to be aspiring to in a much clearer way. But along the way, disability has gotten in the way. That employment's one of those very tricky relationships, and along with that word, the emotional relationship is right up there with employment. I think some would say infinitely trickier, and this is not a presentation about that. I don't think I'll live long enough to figure that one out. But as far as employment, really is a unique relationship. And as people with disabilities have sought to become members of the workforce and have their own jobs, I think they're far less interested in being a member of the workforce than they are just, I'd like a job. I'd like something to do that is rewarding to me, that returns to me the resources necessary to do some of the other things I would like to do, and to be with the people that are my age or that are even of diverse ages that always have an answer to the question, well, what do you do? And employment is, and how we answer that question is very, very important. So let's look at the way that most of us got jobs. And if in this audience you're working, you probably applied for your job, you competed for your job, and theoretically, I think whether you're from Australia or from the States, you were the best person at the time for the job. You had the skills, you had the credentials, you had the experience, and there were other people that wanted the job that you have, and for whatever reason, and I'm sure it's good reasons, and congratulations to all of you who successfully competed for your jobs. They may not have thought about it that way, and I guess there are times and situations in both of our societies where it's like, all you have to do is live and breathe, come on in, we need warm bodies to do work. But that's not so often, and it's not the jobs that I think people really aspire to. And if you happen to have disability, and you happen to have a lot of it, the likelihood of being able to successfully compete the way we have is significantly impacted. And the fact that so relatively, I've only been here a week, but everybody rushes to tell me, Mike, you have no idea. In fact, you guys just said it, what a relatively low labor force participation people with disabilities have. How few people in their plans actually have employment in the plans for the funding that's available in your country and in mine. And it's I'm not here to compare. We've both got a long, long way to go. And I think we've been waiting for an innovation at times. You know, what we've done in the past is we've tried to prepare people. We've helped them with their interviewing and try to get their resumes up as well as can be, maybe some employment experiences, maybe an internship. But at the end of the day, if your disability affects your lives significantly, still, when you're being compared to others, even employers that have taken on an enlightened perspective will often say, well, you know, I'm sorry, and good that you're making the effort, but I'm sorry we didn't choose you under a competitive strategy. And it's a reality that while it's not definitional of all people with disabilities, there's certainly many, many people who experience disability in their lives who have the full ability to compete if they're given the opportunities of a level playing field, reasonable accommodation, and you know, laying aside some of the presumptions and maybe even prejudices that have been part of the issue of disability and employment. A lot of folks can work, but it's going to leave a whole lot of other folks that even with all of that taken care of, it's going to be a lot tougher. And in my life, I'll take you through some of the experiences that I have had to kind of get me to a place that I'd like to interact with employers in a different way. There's absolutely nothing wrong with open employment with the typical way that employers hire, but it's not resulting in large numbers of people with very significant impact of disability being employed. In my introduction, we started back a number of years ago an organization called Employment for All, and we meant it. We meant it. I mean, I'm not naive enough to think that all of a sudden, or even within my lifetime, that we're going to see the same rate of participation in employment by people with disabilities as we see by folks who do not currently experience disability. But I think we need to aspire to that. I think and we need strategies that make it possible. And right now, even with some of our best traditional strategies, hasn't proven to be enough. And one of the things that at the end of the day, and I know it happens here because I've spoken directly to individuals who have told me about this, and I believe that they're doing it, certainly in the States, that the threshold is a competitive threshold. You know, you don't get to show up at an employer and say, you know, I'm here for my job now. And I've looked at your company, and you're really a nice company, so, and I'd really like to work in your finance department. And I'd like primarily afternoon work. And I really don't want to work with Microsoft Excel because I hate it. So I'd really like to work in a certain way that, you know, really fits my needs. And obviously I'm being facetious, but we know it. I mean, it doesn't work that way. You know, we have to. If we really, really want a job to fit who we are, too often we have to really compete. We have to almost do a lifetime of work. And then we kind of get into that situation where we might be able to pick and choose. And I like for that to be sooner than later. And so one of the things that we began to think about was, could there be a different construct all the way around? Instead of this competitive standard that focuses so much on productivity. Think about, I mean, there's some people in this room who experience cerebral palsy and other physical disabilities. If your net value is only how fast your hands work, you're screwed. I mean, your body's just not your friend as far as being able to do a productivity. My fat little fingers can move faster than yours, and that's competition, you know? And it's a tough thing. And you Aussies are competitive folk. I mean, I don't have to wait long to look at your newspapers and anything. I mean, you put sports right on the front page of newspapers, and, you know, I get it. And so are we. Americans are the same way. We're both competitive people. We relish that. But what if competition isn't what you've got to offer? And then what if the system that provides employment is designed on a competitive perspective? That's not in your favor. And I'm not espousing some change of political, social contract here. I mean, that would be, it wouldn't be well received, and it would be totally naive. But I think it is possible to approach employers in a way where the focus is more on contribution than on competition, and let employers voluntarily decide to take that route. And what we're finding over the last nearly 30 years in the States is that employers will do that. They'll do it one at a time, because what I'm going to tell you, at least employers tell us, makes sense. And so again, when the impact of disability increases to the point that competition is not likely to be your best thing that you have to offer, that significant disability can actually create an absolute barrier to employment if competition is the threshold measure. But if we can switch that to contribution, every person can work.